First today, Suffolk police are asking for your help after local ramblers made a shocking discovery as they strolled by a river in Sudbury.
This is somebody's family member. This is somebody's son, father, uncle. There will be people out there who will be missing them. Until we know who this individual is, we really can't bring justice to them or their family.
On Thursday, 27th of August 2020, a local walker was taking a stroll next to the River Stour in the Suffolk town of Sudbury when they spotted some black bin bags.
They called one of the park rangers. They've gone down, they've recovered 2 bags which they found to be quite heavy. And as they're doing that, they've noticed quite a strong chemical smell coming from the bags. They've opened one of the bags, and it's at that point that they've seen inside when a call like this comes in, the first thoughts are, is this what we really think it is? A report of what appeared to be human bones can often be found to be animal.
But closer analysis revealed that the remains were human, and there was evidence of foul play.
In the first bag were what we believe to be the arms of an individual, but also within the bag was a boots carrier bag. Within that boots carrier bag were a number of stones to weigh these bags down. And then when we moved the second bag and the legs were found, the smell came from what we initially described as air fresheners, the type of thing that you would see in public toilets to potentially block any smell. There were around 27 quite deep lacerations caused probably by a heavy-bladed weapon, but not actually a cause of death.
Suspecting other remains may have been dumped nearby, police called in specialist dive teams.
We needed to search the river thoroughly. As a result of that, they found another bag. Within there were some further bone fragments. We had the bone down to the side of the nose and then a small part of the jaw, and within the jaw we had 2 teeth.
DNA testing showed they were all from the same person. A post-mortem examination couldn't pinpoint the cause of death, but the police say it was an adult man with an athletic or muscular build.
Police ran DNA checks to see if the victim was on a missing persons register or on the national DNA database, but there was no match.
We could tell that it was an adult approximately 5'6" to 5'9" in height. What we were then able to do is start to look at carbon dating and start to look at using the teeth that we had, but also sections of the bone. What we found is that our victim was in their late 50s to early 60s, born pre-1955 to early 1950s. They were likely to be of North European ancestry. They were likely to have had blue-green eyes and at birth likely to have had blonde hair.
Police looked at reported sightings and established the bags had been deposited in the river 7 to 10 days before being spotted. But carbon dating led them to believe the death was not recent.
We believe the date of death was between 2008 and 2012, and that's quite significant because there's quite a long pause then between death and between the discovery of the remains.
Police suspected the man had been murdered and his body stored elsewhere for a number of years before being dumped in the river.
The feet were pushed up towards the shins and the arms were bent in. So they may have been put into quite a tight confine to try and obviously cover up the murder. It's difficult to say whether or not this is definitively linked to organised crime. What we do know, from the state in which the remains were found, with the skull appearing to have a number of injuries, that this was a serious level of violence that was used against the individual when they were killed. And that could attribute to organised criminality.
So far, the identity of the victim and his killer remain a mystery.
It's really important that we identify our victim. What I'm really conscious about is this was somebody's loved one, this was somebody's family member, and until such time as we can identify them, we can't notify their loved ones. The other thing that identifying the victim will do is it will allow us to understand their lifestyle and allow us then to look at those other lines of inquiry that may generate to establish what may have happened to them, who may have been responsible for it, and to ultimately bring those people to justice.
I'm joined now by Detective Superintendent Mike Brown from Suffolk Police, who you saw in the film there. Mike, good morning. It was a gruesome discovery in a really quiet area. How were you first alerted to this?
You're absolutely right, it was. We received a call from the park ranger on the 27th of August 2020 to say that they'd just recovered some bags and they'd opened them due to a smell. And within those bags, they'd found some other carrier bags with stones and bricks that had weighed down the contents, but also human remains.
Absolutely shocking discovery. So what have you been able to establish about the victim?
So we were able to use DNA to get a full DNA profile, but we loaded that across local, national and international databases. And we've not actually been able to make a match on who they are and what their identity is. What we do know through radiocarbon dating, through other forensic processes, is that they were a white male, likely to be white Northern European. They were probably born with blonde hair, although that may have changed over time, blue-green eyes. They were 5'6" to 5'9" in height, a muscular or athletic build as a description.
OK, what about the skull itself? Because certainly from the fragments that you've recovered, there was some shocking findings with that.
There was indeed. The skull fragments actually were quite small in themselves, so we don't have a complete skull. But across the top of the skull, in a linear format, were 27 quite deep lacerations or injuries. And through the post-mortem process, the pathologist identified those were probably caused by a heavy-bladed weapon, but wouldn't have necessarily been the cause of death.
OK, now, we've got some images of the bags here, Mike. Just talk us through these.
So the black bags that I described at the start, they were fairly standard black bin bags, and you can see in the bottom corner there, kind of the remains of one of the air fresheners. They were yellow in colour. But it was within these bags that we then had the two carrier bags.
OK, and we see this next image here. This is one of those that you're speaking about now.
Boots carrier bag, but what we were able to do with this is actually age it. The branding on the carrier bags, they removed feel good from it in around 2008 to 2010. And the Boots carrier bag had stones within it, but also within the bags there was a red and white thingamybobs carrier bag that had the bricks in it. Now, both were stores that were in Sudbury, and Thingamybobs closed again around 2008 to 2012.
OK, we've got this other image here of another black bag. Talk us through this one, Mike.
So these two bags, so we mentioned at the start that a further find was found, and that was the skull and the other fragments that we had. They were in these smaller blue carrier bags. Now, these are typically seen in local markets for fruit and veg, for example. But again, two of these, one inside each other, stones inside the inner ones, and the skull fragments, again, inside that.
You've got a pretty good idea of when the bags were dumped, though, haven't you?
We have. The local community were brilliant for us, ramblers, users of the river. And what we were able to do is say that the bags were first sighted roughly a week to 10 days before the ranger was able to take them out. And they were close to the riverbank, and they'd stayed in that same location since they were first seen. So
that was recent, but the actual death happened some time before?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, the radiocarbon work that we did predicted death was between 2008 to 2012. Now, that's a huge amount of time where this person or the victim and their remains has been stored, and that's key to us, is finding out where that location was.
And you also believe the death may have happened some distance from where the bags were recovered?
Absolutely. The location, whilst rural, it's close to the Essex borders, and we've worked with three hypotheses around whether or not somebody was doing building work. They've simply thrown the remains away to try and avoid delays, whether or not it was a family member who may have been claiming benefit fraud for a deceased relative, and again, something happened that meant they had to dispose of the remains, or that it could be related to organised criminality and the expertise seen in the dismemberment of the remains that we've got.
Mike, who are you hoping to hear from today?
I'd really like to hear from anybody who remembers the person as per description, who maybe just dropped off the radar, who maybe just they stopped seeing or thought they'd moved away but had concerns for. It's really important we identify who they are. They've got loved ones. They may be the son, the father, you know. It's really important for us to let those loved ones know, but also for us to identify this key piece of the jigsaw in terms of who they are.
Very well said. Thank you, Mike. And have a good look. If you've got any information that could be of relevance, please do get in touch. The contact details are on the screen throughout the whole programme.